Dear students, let us start with your course book today. So we have already done up till the first section of 4 unit. Now today we will start with the second section of the 4th unit, which is titled as the Christmas Truce. Now this is basically, this story will tell us about the moment that one has to undergo during the time of war. This story is written in the form of a letter where a character called Tom writes a letter to his sister, and the so-called Tom is a soldier during First World War, as we have already discussed in the previous chapter, First World War, which was held in between 1914 to 1918. Now, here in this story, it will tell us that a festival like Christmas, what does it mean to soldiers? For soldiers who are on the field of battle, soldiers who are expecting that any moment they can be injured or they can be killed, right? Or they will have to kill someone because they are in the battlefield. Now here, as I told you, that this is written in the form of a letter where the soldier writes to his sister during Christmas and shares with her a kind of a magical incident which took place on the battlefield on no man's land. What is no man's land? It's basically an area of ground between two enemy groups, and this area is owned by neither. None of them owns this. That's called no man's land. Now this no man's land is somewhere in France, and here the so-called Tom shares with her sister Janet about an incident which took place during Christmas in 1914. This story actually is a true story of how the First World War troops on both the sides of trenches, how they observed Christmas together during 1914. This story is actually a kind of documentary footage and soldiers, the letters, the diaries. Here, the author of this chapter, the writer, that is Aaron Shepard, takes the documentary footage of the soldiers' letters and the diaries and creates a character called Tom as a British soldier writing his sister about this extraordinary event. So here in this letter you would see that Tom, the brother, writes to his sister that there have been, and especially if you see, before I go into the story, let me just give you some more introduction. But related to Christmas, and that too Christmas celebrated in 1914, there have been lots of stories. The way Christmas was celebrated during the First World War, and also many books are there which occurred during those days. But now this story in the form of a letter written by Aaron, here Aaron has written another version, not the general usual version which you will find in different books and different stories about the Christmas Eve that happened during this First World War, but here we will find a different version of this same Christmas event. All right, I hope you got at least a bit of idea about the chapter. Now here, the Christmas truce. What is truce? It's basically a kind of a halt, a suspension of war, but not permanent. It's not that the war ended forever, just a temporary suspension. War was going on, but in between the war, for some periods, for some moments, for some days, this war came to a halt. Okay, that's called truce, the Christmas truce. Truce. Now, in this fictional letter, which is written to his sister Janet, who is back home in London, and as I told you, Tom, a soldier who is at the frontier, at the border, at the western frontier, he tells her the extraordinary story of how this temporary suspension of fight during the war happened. Okay? He writes that soldiers on both the sides of no man's land, and this no man's land is somewhere a space of say around 50 yards. Okay, so he says that how soldiers on both the sides of no man's land were relatively quiet on this Christmas Eve day, and they were waiting for replacements after heavy fighting and also many deaths. It was cold and had snowed. We know Christmas is during the winter season, right? So it was very cold out there and had snowed. So everything, even including the soldiers, it was all frozen. And as you read the text, you'll come across that suddenly, as night fell, and even the so-called the gunfires stopped, the British heard the Germans singing. Right? What were they singing? It's written in the text. There is a song mentioned that in the letter Tom has written to her sister. You see in page number 120. From the end, if you check 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph from the last, page number 120. There's a song written, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. Right? So, this was the song that the British people, the British soldiers heard the Germans singing, and also saw that they had placed Christmas trees, complete with burning candles all along their trenches. Okay? Now, after this, soon the soldiers on both the sides, they began to trade, they began to exchange favorite Christmas carols, Christmas songs. Back and forth, one after another, they started singing, as if like they were exchanging with one another across this no man's land. And finally, the Germans invited the Allied soldiers. Okay. So, if you see this so-called the First World War, as I told you, it happened between two sides, two groups. In one side, you can call the Allied soldiers, the other side, the Axis. Okay? As you will come to know more about this in the history section, I believe, most probably by next year or the year after that, maybe by class 9 or 10, you'll get a proper idea about the First World War and also about Second World War. So you'll come to know that who are these Allied soldiers. And for now, let me just give you an idea that is one group. Since a fight takes place between two groups, so this is one group, Allied soldiers. Okay, now coming back. Yeah, where am I? Okay. Yeah, the song. So as I told you that the soldiers on both the sides, they began to exchange Christmas songs back and forth across this no man's land. And finally, at last, these Germans, they invited the Allied soldiers to come out of their trenches and meet in the middle. So when these Germans invited the Allied to come out and for a meetup in the middle, then one of them asked, you see, in page number 121, from top, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh paragraph, okay, from the top. See, there is a line written, English, come over. English here refers to the Britishers. English people means the British people, as English is actually the British language. So English, come over. We heard one of them shout. We, the Britishers are saying that, we heard somebody calling us English, come over. And then here the Englishman replies, not the Englishman, sorry. The German soldier says, you know shoot, we know shoot. See, I repeat, you know shoot, we know shoot. Which means, you don't shoot us, even we won't shoot you. Okay? So, as they were invited for a meetup in the middle, and this Christmas Eve, it was kind of a war on everybody. Soldiers on both sides, they discovered a lot of things in common. Okay, even though there were two different groups fighting against one another, but this particular eve brought them closer to one another, gave them a feeling of commonness, oneness, and they found that many things are same, common on both the sides. And after exchanging gifts, badges, uniform buttons, cigars, coffee, cigarettes, tea, even newspaper they were exchanging with one another, right? Then the soldiers, they parted away and went back to their trenches. Now, after that, as Tommy ends the letter that he is writing to his sister, okay, where he has described all this scenario, this incident. So as Tommy ends his letter, he writes at the end, you see in page number 123, at the end, all nations say they want peace, yet on this Christmas morning, I wonder if we want it quite enough. So with this line, Tom ends the letter that he wrote for his sister Janet, who is back at home in London. Alright? I hope you got the story. Please go through the text. I am repeating again, read the text properly. It's very important, okay? Understanding the text, going through the text. And if you do not understand anything, if you have any doubt, and also one more thing before I end the class, as you would find many new words, as some of the meaning of those new words are already mentioned at the end of each page, vocabulary, new vocabulary to you, and also some which may be new to you, but it may not be mentioned in the text. Please underline those words in the text, write down the meaning of those, taking the help of dictionary in your classwork copy, notebook, okay, and use those words in your day-to-day life, in your question answers, while communicating, while speaking. It will help you to improve your language. All right? Study well. God bless you.